Welcome to Goodnight Audio, your cozy little corner for bedtime stories. Take a deep breath, let the world fade away, and let our voice carry you into a peaceful night. May you enjoy every story we tell.
The Golden Hand. The tavern's air was thick with the mingling scents of smoke, spiced meats, and a hint of something metallic that clung to the walls like a long, forgotten secret. Flickering candles cast dancing shadows, and the low murmur of patrons provided a dissonant backdrop to the conversation at hand. Kaelan, Lyra, Eldrin, and Varen huddled around a scarred wooden table in the far corner, the flicker of their faces illuminating the tension that had begun to settle among them. Kaelan leaned forward, elbows resting on the table, his expression earnest. We need to talk about the Golden Hand. If Queen Seraphine is after them, then whatever power they possess is beyond our understanding. Varen, his broad shoulders framed by the dim light, smirked, the scar on his cheek catching the glow like a jagged dagger. Power, That's what this is all about, isn't it? If we find them first, we could be the ones holding all the cards. His eyes glinted with a feral hunger that made Kaelan's stomach twist with unease. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Lyra interjected, her voice sharp, cutting through the growing fervor. She leaned back slightly, crossing her arms, a wary expression crossing her face. What do we even know about them? Rumors and stories don't count for much in this world. Eldrin, who had been observing with his deep, set eyes, finally spoke, his voice low but resonant. The Golden Hand is no mere legend. There are ancient texts that reference them. An elite faction with abilities that defy the very laws of nature. Their power can shift the balance of the kingdoms, and Seraphine is keen on wielding it. The old elf's words hung heavy in the air, the weight of them sinking into the atmosphere like a stone cast into a still pond. Kaelan felt a chill run down his spine. So, they are real? He murmured, absorbing the implications. What does that mean for us? Eldrin's gaze drifted towards the tavern's smoky ceiling, as if searching for answers among the beams. It means that our fight is no longer just against Seraphine. It's against an entity that could either aid her in her conquest, or perhaps be the very thing that brings her downfall. Varen's chuckle was dark, cutting through the somber atmosphere. A conundrum indeed. We might end up facing both the Golden Hand and Seraphine simultaneously, if they're that powerful. Why haven't they taken a stand yet? Lyra shot Varen an incredulous look. Maybe because they don't want to be pawns in someone else's game, or perhaps they've seen what happens to those who rise too quickly. It's a dangerous world, and they likely know that. Kaelan leaned back, his mind racing. He could feel the storm brewing within him, an agitation that was becoming harder to ignore. If we're going to stand a chance against both the Queen and the Golden Hand, we need a plan. We can't allow them to get ahead of us. A contemplative silence filled the space, punctuated only by the clinking of mugs and the laughter of nearby patrons. It was Varen who broke it, his voice a conspiratorial whisper. There's talk among mercenaries about a hidden location, a sanctuary where the Golden Hand is rumored to gather. If we can find it first, we might be able to persuade them to join our cause, or at the very least, gain insight into Seraphine's intentions. Kaelan's eyes narrowed. And how do you propose we find this sanctuary? Just storm in and demand answers. We need more than that. We need intel. Lyra's brow furrowed, her fingers drumming lightly on the table. I could slip into the market tomorrow. There are always whispers floating around. People love to gossip. If anyone knows something, it'll be the merchants. They're connected. The Eldrin nodded thoughtfully. That is a sound approach. But be careful, Lyra. Those who trade in secrets often pay a steep price for knowledge. Varen leaned closer to Kaelan, his expression intense. And what about you? The chosen one, right? Isn't that your destiny? To confront these forces? You should be the one leading the charge. Kaelan recoiled slightly, the pressure of Varen's ambition hanging heavy in the air. I'm not looking for glory. I'm looking for answers. If we're going to do this, it has to be together. All of us. Varen's grin widened, but Kaelan could see the glint of challenge in his eyes. Together, yes. But don't think for a moment that I won't seize the opportunity if it presents itself. After all, strength is what rules this world. The tension in the room thickened, unspoken words lingering between them like a heavy fog. Kaelan felt a tumult of emotions swirling inside him. Resolve, anger, but also fear. Trust was a fragile thing, and Varen's ambition seemed to cast a long shadow over their fragile alliance. Before he could voice his concerns, the tavern door swung open, a gust of cold air sweeping in as a cloaked figure stepped inside. The room fell quiet, all eyes turning toward the newcomer. The figure moved with purpose, a hood obscuring their face, but there was an undeniable air of authority about them. Kaelan's heart raced. "Who is that?" he whispered, tension coiling in his gut. As the figure approached their table, they pulled back their hood, revealing a sharp-eyed woman with auburn hair that fell around her shoulders like a cascade of autumn leaves. "I hear you're looking for the golden hand." Her voice was smooth, almost melodic, yet held an edge that suggested danger. Varen leaned back, crossing his arms. "And who might you be?" "I am someone who can help you, if you are willing to listen," she replied, her gaze sweeping over each of them. Kaelan's pulse quickened. This could be the lead they needed, but something in the woman's demeanor raised a flag of caution in his mind. "What do you know about them?" he asked, his voice steadier than he felt. She smiled faintly, a glimmer of mischief in her eyes. "More than you can imagine. But first, we need to talk about what you're willing to risk to uncover the truth. Because in this game, nothing comes without a cost." As her words settled over the group, Kaelan exchanged a glance with Lyra and Eldrin. The atmosphere crackled with uncertainty and intrigue. The stakes had been raised, and they stood at the precipice of a decision that could change everything. What would they be willing to risk to uncover the secrets of the Golden Hand? Kaelan leaned forward, his elbows resting on the worn table. "We need to know everything you can tell us," he urged, trying to mask the storm brewing within him. The mention of the Golden Hand had ignited a flicker of hope, yet fear lingered in the edges of his mind. What sacrifices lay ahead? The woman nodded, her expression unwavering. "The Golden Hand is an elite faction that harnesses powers unlike any you've encountered. They operate from the shadows, manipulating the very elements of Eldoria to maintain their influence. If Queen Seraphine finds them first..." Her voice trailed off, leaving a heavy silence hanging in the air. Lyra shifted in her seat, her curiosity piqued. What do they want? Why are they so important? The Golden Hand seeks to maintain balance, but their methods are unorthodox, the woman explained, her gaze flickering to Varen, who remained stoic, arms crossed, studying her intently. Some view them as guardians, others see them as a threat. What's undeniable is that whoever controls them can dictate the fate of Eldoria. Kaelan's heart pounded at the weight of her words. "And Seraphine is after them too." "Dominate?" She interrupted, her voice low and fervent. "If she claims their power, her rule will be absolute. That's why we need to act quickly." Varen finally spoke up, his tone sharper than before. "So what's your plan? Sit around and hope they'll just reveal themselves to us? That's not how this works." The woman's expression shifted slightly, a flicker of irritation passing over her features. "No, but I know where they're rumored to meet. We can go there, confront them. But you must be prepared for anything. They don't take kindly to intruders." Kaelan exchanged glances with Lyra and Eldrin, weighing the risks. "What about Seraphine? We can't let her get there first." The woman leaned in closer, the atmosphere thickening with tension. "That's exactly why I'm here. I have resources that can help us move faster, but it will require some persuasion." Varen's eyes sparkled with an excited ambition. "Persuasion. Now you're speaking my language. What's the target?" She hesitated for a moment before continuing. "There's a merchant in Blackstone. He's connected to the Golden Hand, but he's also in Seraphine's pocket. We can leverage him to get the information we need." Lyra frowned, crossing her arms. "And how do you propose we approach this merchant without alerting Seraphine? If she finds out, then we'll be dead before we even reach the meeting." Varen interjected, leaning back with a challenging grin. But if we're fast enough, we can catch them off guard. I say we do it. Strike first, ask questions later. Kaelan felt the air crackle with tension. That's reckless. We can't risk everything on a hunch. We need to be smart about this. Varen's gaze narrowed, irritation flaring in his eyes. And how many more opportunities do you think we'll get? If you're not willing to take risks, then maybe you're not cut out to lead us. Chosen one. The label stung. Kaelan took a deep breath, trying to steady his thoughts. This isn't just about you or me, Varen. We're fighting for the future of Eldoria. We need to work together, and not against each other. Lyra's voice broke through the mounting conflict, soothing yet firm. We can devise a plan that balances risk with caution, but we can't allow fear to paralyze us. Varen, your aggression has its merits, but Kaelan is right. If we fail, the consequences will be catastrophic. The woman nodded in agreement. Exactly. We need a clear strategy. First, we gather intel on the merchant and determine the safest way to confront him without raising alarms. Varen sighed, irritation still etched on his face. Fine. But the moment this drags on, I'm taking matters into my own hands. I didn't sign up to play games. Kaelan locked eyes with Varen, the fire of their conflict simmering beneath the surface. I can't let you go off on your own. You need to trust us, Varen. Trust is the only thing that will keep us alive. As silence fell, Kaelan could feel the weight of their choices hanging in the air. A tightrope stretched between ambition and cooperation. He looked to Lyra and Eldrin, both of whom offered him silent encouragement, but uncertainty rippled within him. The woman, sensing the turmoil, stood up. If we're going to act, we need to move now. The longer we wait, the more time Seraphine has to tighten her grip on Eldoria. I'll meet you in the marketplace at dusk. We'll go over the plan then. With that, she turned and left, the tension she left behind palpable in the air. Kaelan exhaled, attempting to process the urgency of their mission and the underlying discord within their group. Lyra broke the silence, her voice softer now. Kaelan, you need to watch your back with Varen. He's ambitious, and it could lead to trouble. I know, Kaelan replied, the unease settling deep in his gut. But if we're going to face Seraphine, we need to find common ground. Otherwise, we'll end up tearing each other apart before we even reach her. Do you think Varen will be cooperative? Eldrin asked, his expression calm but the worry in his eyes clear. Kaelan shrugged, unsure. We have to hope so. We can't let ambition blind us to the real enemy. As they gathered their belongings, the shadows of doubt clung to Kaelan like a second skin. Would Varen's ambitions clash too fiercely with their objectives? Would the stakes be too high for their alliance to survive? The hour of dusk approached, and the weight of their choices pressed heavily upon Kaelan's shoulders. They were on the brink of uncovering secrets that could shift the balance of power in Eldoria. But with every decision came a price. Would they be willing to pay it? In that moment, Kaelan felt the storm inside him swell. The choices ahead would define them, and he was determined not to let the shadows swallow them whole. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the streets of Blackstone transformed into a labyrinth of shadows and flickering lanterns. Kaelan, Lyra, Eldrin, and Varen made their way through the thrumming marketplace, each step heavy with unspoken tension. Merchants called out, their voices rising above the chatter, yet Kaelan felt like he was walking through a muffled world, the chaos around him blending into a dull roar. The group had agreed to meet with the woman from earlier, a member of a faction known for gathering information about the elusive Golden Hand. Her urgency still echoed in Kaelan's mind, a constant reminder that time was not on their side. He scanned the marketplace, anxiety bubbling beneath his calm exterior. Keep your eyes peeled, Varen muttered, his gaze sharp and vigilant. If we're looking for trouble, it'll find us before we find it. Kaelan bristled at the mercenary's tone, his unease morphing into a spark of irritation. We need to stay focused. We're not here to pick a fight. Tell that to the shadows lurking around every corner. Varen shot back, his posture tense and ready for conflict. Lyra moved closer to Kaelan, her petite frame almost lost in the bustling crowd. "Let him be," she whispered, eyes glinting with mischief. It's like watching a wolf get agitated before a hunt. Before Kaelan could respond, the woman appeared from the throng, her dark cloak swirling around her as she approached. "You came," she said, her voice steady but edged with urgency. "We need to talk." The four of them followed her to a quieter alleyway, the din of the marketplace fading into the distance. As they reached the mouth of the alley, the woman leaned against the damp wall, the lantern light catching the sharp features of her face. "I have information about the Golden Hand, but there are others interested in it as well." "Others?" Kaelan echoed, the weight of those words hanging in the air. "What do you mean?" "There's a rival faction, mercenaries who believe they can outmaneuver you," she explained, glancing over her shoulder as if the very shadows might be listening. "They're after the same leads you are. They won't hesitate to eliminate anyone who gets in their way." And Eldrin's brow furrowed. "What are their numbers? Do we know who leads them?" "Not much is clear, but I've heard whispers of a man named Corvin. He's ruthless and has a small army at his back," she replied, her voice lowering. "You must be careful. They're already in motion." A chill settled over Kaelan, the implications of her words cascading over him like an icy wave. The stakes had just escalated. "Where are they headed?" he demanded. "They've been tracking a merchant who's linked to the Golden Hand. I overheard them speaking about a meeting at the old mill on the outskirts of the city. If you hurry, you might get there before they do." Kaelan's heart raced as he weighed the risk. "We need to split up. Varen and I will head to the mill. Eldrin, you and Lyra stay here and keep an eye out for any signs of trouble. If Corvin's group appears, warn us." Lyra opened her mouth to protest, but Eldrin placed a calming hand on her shoulder. "It's the best course of action. We need to act quickly. Don't think you can go off gallivanting alone, pretty boy," Varen growled, his expression hardening. "I'm coming with you. The last thing we need is for you to get ambushed by this Corvin." Kaelan met Varen's gaze, a battle of wills brewing between them. "I can handle myself, but I need you to stay focused and not let your ambition cloud your judgment." Varen smirked, a glint of mischief dancing in his eyes. "Trust me, Stormrider. If there's fighting to be done, I won't hold back." Before Kaelan could reply, the woman interjected. "Time is running out. You need to move now." With a nod, Kaelan turned to sprint down the alley. Varen closed on his heels. They navigated the twisting streets, the crowd thinning as they approached the outskirts. The air grew heavier, the distant sounds of the marketplace replaced by an eerie stillness. "Do you feel that?" Kaelan whispered, his instincts prickling. The atmosphere was charged, thick with unspoken danger. Varen nodded, eyes darting around. "Like we're being watched." They reached the old mill, its silhouette looming against the dim twilight sky. A few flickering lights from within suggested that someone was already there. "Stay low," Kaelan ordered, moving toward the entrance, his heart pounding in rhythm with his footsteps. As they peered inside, a group of rough-looking mercenaries huddled around a table, maps spread out before them. Corvin stood at the center, his sharp features illuminated by the glow of a single lantern. "The Golden Hand will be ours," he exclaimed, a sinister smile curling his lips. "No one will stop us." Kaelan's pulse quickened. He exchanged a glance with Varen, who nodded in understanding. They couldn't let this faction get to the Golden Hand first. Before they could devise a plan, the door creaked behind them, and the sound of footsteps echoed in the stillness. Kaelan's breath hitched as he turned to see Lyra and Eldrin standing a few paces away, the realization dawning on him. "What are you doing here?" he hissed, but the answer was already apparent. Lyra shrugged, a defiant spark in her eyes. "We couldn't just sit back and wait. You might need our help." Eldrin remained stoic, his hand resting near the staff at his side. "We all stand together or we fall alone." The atmosphere crackled with tension as they contemplated their next move. If they charged in now, they would be outnumbered. But hesitation could cost them everything. "We need to create a diversion." Kaelan whispered urgently, his mind racing. Lyra, can you create an illusion to distract them? Just long enough for us to get the drop on Corvin. Leave it to me, she replied, a grin creeping onto her face. Watch and learn. As she prepared her magic, Varen turned to Kaelan, his expression shifting from irritation to something deeper. Determination. If we're going to do this, let's make it count. I won't let anyone take this opportunity from us. Kaelan felt a surge of resolve wash over him. Then let's show them what we're made of. In that moment, the boundaries of their alliance solidified into something tangible. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. With a flick of her wrist, Lyra conjured a swirling illusion, casting a spectral figure that darted out into the open space of the mill. The mercenaries turned, their attention diverted. Now, Kaelan shouted, and they lunged into the fray, hearts pounding, adrenaline surging as they charged into the chaos. But as they rushed forward, the shadows stirred with a force they hadn't anticipated. A looming threat that had been watching from the sidelines, ready to strike. As the chaos of battle erupted around them, the tension within the group felt like a taut string ready to snap. Kaelan led the charge, his dual swords gleaming in the flickering light, but it was Varen's growl of anticipation that truly ignited the ferocity in the air. Let's finish this, Varen roared, his massive figure plowing through the mercenaries like a force of nature. Kaelan fought to keep up, the thrill of combat propelling him forward. But as he sliced through an opponent, his mind was also racing with the implications of their encounter. They were not just fighting for their lives. They were racing against time to thwart Queen Seraphine's sinister plans. In the midst of the brawl, Lyra darted past him, her agility on full display as she avoided a clumsy strike from a mercenary. Keep your head in the game, Kaelan, she shouted over her shoulder, her voice laced with a mix of excitement and warning. Kaelan nodded, refocusing as he felt the pulse of magic in the air, an almost palpable reminder of the golden hand that had spurred them all into action. The whispers of the faction had been growing, each story more outrageous than the last. What power could they wield that had Corvin so determined? With a well-timed strike, he disarmed a mercenary, sending the man sprawling, but even as Kaelan fought, his thoughts lingered on Varen. There was something in the way the mercenary charged headfirst into battle that was both exhilarating and concerning. The darker side of ambition was always lurking just beneath the surface, and Kaelan couldn't shake the feeling that Varen was pursuing something more than mere victory. The scuffle escalated as more mercenaries flooded in, each one vying for a piece of the action. As Kaelan blocked a sword thrust aimed at his side, he glanced over to find Varen standing over a fallen opponent, something glinting in his hand. The moment stretched like a thread ready to snap, and Kaelan felt a jolt of dread settle in his stomach. Varen, what did you find? He called out, trying to keep his voice steady despite the noise. Something powerful. Varen's eyes sparkled with a manic intensity as he held up a small ornate box, intricately carved and radiating a strange energy. This has to be tied to the golden hand? Kaelan's heart raced. We don't have time to. I'm taking it, Varen interrupted, his voice thick with determination. The promise of power hung heavy in the air, a tempting allure that made Kaelan's skin crawl. You can't even imagine what this could mean for us, for me? Varen, we came here for a reason! You can't just decide to keep that for yourself. Kaelan's frustration boiled over as he pushed through the chaos to confront Varen. But Varen was already lost in a different world, his focus solely on the box as he slid it into his belt. This is our chance to gain the upper hand against Seraphine. We can't just hand this opportunity to Corvin. We need to work together, not let our ambitions drive us apart. Kaelan pleaded, but the resolve in Varen's eyes told him everything he needed to know. As Varen stood tall, the flickering light reflecting off his armor, Kaelan could feel the shifting tides of their alliance. I won't let anyone take this away from me, not even you. With that, Varen turned, rejoining the fray with renewed vigor, and Kaelan felt a pang of betrayal slice through him. This wasn't just a fight against mercenaries anymore. It was a fight against his own teammate, someone he had trusted to stand shoulder to shoulder in the chaos. "Lyra!" Kaelan shouted, spotting her battling a group of mercenaries nearby. "We need to keep an eye on Varen. He's not thinking straight." "I see it," she replied, flipping over an enemy and landing gracefully. "But we can't lose focus now. Let's finish this." Kaelan nodded, but a knot twisted tighter in his stomach. As they fought, the mercenaries began to falter, clearly outmatched. But victory felt bittersweet as he caught sight of Varen again. A wild grin plastered across his face as he held the artifact close. Kaelan forced himself to concentrate on the present, pushing aside the worry gnawing at him. They had to defeat Corvin and his crew before they could deal with the growing rift among them. The last thing they needed was to turn on one another in the heat of battle. With renewed determination, he surged forward, but the moment was fleeting. Just as they began to overpower the mercenaries, the sound of hooves thundered through the air, drawing the attention of everyone in the room. From the shadows emerged a small army clad in the colors of Seraphine's elite guard, their eyes cold and focused. Corvin, one of the guards, barked, pointing at the mercenary leader. "You've overstayed your welcome." Kaelan's heart dropped as panic flooded through the group. "We need to retreat. We're outnumbered," he shouted. Varen turned, defiance coursing through him. "I'm not leaving empty-handed," he roared, lunging toward the guards. "Varen, no," Kaelan shouted, but the mercenary was already lost in his ambition, swinging wildly at the nearest guards. "Kaelan," Lyra called out, pulling him back. "We can't help him if we're caught too. Let's go," Kaelan urged, but the weight of betrayal felt heavier with each passing second. The guards advanced with chilling efficiency, cutting through the mercenaries with practiced ease. Kaelan felt the pressure mounting, the urgency of the situation slamming into him like a tidal wave. If they didn't escape now, the cost would be far greater than they could bear. With one last look at Varen, who was now fully engaged in a dangerous skirmish with the guards, Kaelan made the hardest decision of all. "We have to go." As they retreated, leaving chaos in their wake, the realization settled heavily in Kaelan's mind. Trust was a fragile thread, and it was now unraveling, exposing the deeper divides within their group. Varen's ambition had begun to clash violently with their purpose, and the battle for the Golden Hand had set them on a collision course they could not escape. The streets outside echoed with the distant sounds of conflict as Kaelan and Lyra made their escape, but the shadow of betrayal lingered, looming large over their next steps. What would it cost them to regain unity? And could they confront Seraphine if they couldn't even trust each other? As they sprinted through the darkened alleyways, the weight of uncertainty hung heavy in the air, threatening to consume them all. The alleyways of Blackstone echoed with the sound of hurried footsteps, punctuated by the distant chaos of battle. Kaelan, with Lyra close behind, navigated through the shadows, the urgency of their escape hanging thick in the air. As they turned a corner, the dim light of a flickering lantern illuminated their path, revealing the frantic determination etched on Kaelan's face. "We have to regroup with Eldrin," Kaelan urged, glancing back nervously. His heart raced, not just from the chase, but from the nagging fear of what lay ahead. Varen's reckless ambition threatened to tear apart everything they had worked for. Would they find their way back to trust, or was it too late? Lyra, breathless but focused, nodded in agreement. He might have some ideas on how to counter Seraphine's forces. Her voice was sharp, betraying a hint of the anxiety that she fought to suppress. The betrayal still stung. Varen had not only jeopardized their mission, but also put their lives at risk for the sake of his own desire for power. Suddenly, the sounds of the scuffle escalated behind them, and Kaelan's instincts kicked in. He pushed himself harder, desperation fueling his speed. The alley walls seemed to close in around them, the shadows playing tricks on his mind, whispering doubts that threatened to drown out their resolve. As they burst into a wider street, the scene before them shifted dramatically. A market square, usually bustling with vendors and patrons, was now a battlefield. Guards clad in Seraphine's insignia clashed with mercenaries, steel meeting steel in a cacophony of chaos. The air was thick with tension, and the smell of sweat and blood assaulted their senses. Fear. Lyra pointed, her sharp eyes catching sight of Eldrin, standing his ground at the edge of the fray. Weaving intricate patterns in the air with his staff, wisps of magic pulsed around him, warding off attackers as he summoned ethereal creatures from the spirit realm to fight by his side. Eldrin, Kaelan called, pushing through the crowd of chaos toward their mentor. We need to regroup. But as they approached, the battle's tide began to shift. Varen emerged from the fray, a tempest of fury, his eyes alight with reckless energy. "We're not running?" he bellowed, voice booming above the din.
"This is our chance!"
"We can take the Golden Hand's power now." Kaelan's stomach twisted.
"Varen, you can't be serious!"
"We need to focus on getting out of here, not fighting blindly." Varen turned to face him, the glint in his eye dangerously intoxicating.
"Power waits for no one, Kaelan!"
"Do you think Seraphine will give us a second chance? We have to seize what we can, or we'll be crushed." Lyra stepped forward, her tone challenging. "And what happens if you push too hard?"
"If you lose control, you'll bring us all down with you."
The tension hung heavy between them, each heartbeat amplified in the charged atmosphere. Kaelan felt his heart racing as he stepped closer to Varen, determination blazing in his deep blue eyes. "What happened to loyalty? You can't let this ambition blind you. We need to trust each other to get through this, or we're done for." Varen's laugh was dark, filled with a manic edge. "Trust. You think that's what this is about? We're in a war. Every man for himself." He took a step forward, drawing his greatsword, the blade gleaming menacingly in the light.
"Either join me or stand aside."
Eldrin's voice broke through the tension, calm yet commanding.
"Enough!"
"We don't have time for this petty squabble." He gestured to the battlefield, where a group of guards advanced, encircling them. "We must escape, or we will lose more than just trust today." Kaelan's mind raced. They were surrounded by enemies, and the rift within their group felt like a chasm opening beneath them. "Varen, we're stronger together. The Golden Hand isn't worth losing everything we have." His voice was steadier now, infused with desperation and hope. But Varen stood firm, his gaze unyielding, a storm brewing behind his fierce exterior. "Then you're weak. You'll never understand true power." With a swift movement, he turned away from Kaelan and sprinted toward the heart of the battle, his form merging with the chaos. "No," Kaelan shouted, but it was too late. Varen had chosen his path, and the gulf between them widened. "Kaelan!" Lyra pulled him back, urgency in her voice. "We need to move. We can't lose him. But we can't fight him either." As they began to retreat, Kaelan's heart ached with a sense of impending doom. The stakes had never been higher, and the realization that their mission was unraveling cut deeper than any blade. The flickering shadows danced around him, echoes of their divided loyalties ringing in his ears. "Eldrin, what do we do now?" he gasped, breathless from the weight of their predicament. The old mage's expression was grave, his eyes flickering with wisdom and concern. "We gather our strength," Eldrin said firmly, "and we prepare to confront Seraphine. She seeks the Golden Hand, and we cannot let her claim its power." "Not now? Not ever." Kaelan nodded, but doubts gnawed at him like wolves in the night. Would they truly have the strength to face Seraphine, and at what cost? The thought of Varen, lost to his ambition, churned uneasily in his stomach. "Come on," Lyra urged, gripping his arm as they turned to flee. "We'll figure this out, together." As they escaped into the deeper alleys, Kaelan stole one last glance back at the battlefield. The chaos consumed them all, and the shadows that loomed over their group threatened to swallow them whole. The fight was far from over, and in the depths of his heart, Kaelan knew this was just the beginning of a far more complicated struggle. What would they sacrifice to regain unity? And could they trust each other in a world where power was everything? The questions lingered, heavy like a storm cloud, waiting to burst forth. echoes of the past. The air was thick with tension as Kaelan Lyra and Eldrin navigated the dimly lit streets of Blackstone, the weight of their mission pressing heavily on their shoulders. The chaos of the recent battle had subsided, but the echoes of conflict lingered like a haunting melody in the back of Kaelan's mind. As they walked, he could feel a storm brewing not just within the skies above, but also deep within himself, a tumult of emotions that he struggled to contain. "Kaelan, are you with us?" Lyra's voice broke through his reverie, her sharp green eyes piercing through the shadows that threatened to consume him. She stepped closer, concern etched across her delicate features. "Yeah," he replied, though his voice lacked conviction. He glanced toward the towering spires of the city, their jagged silhouettes illuminated by the flickering light of torches. Just lost in thought. And Eldrin walked ahead, his staff tapping against the cobblestones with a rhythmic cadence that seemed to echo Kaelan's unsettled heart. Thoughts can be dangerous in times like these. Young Stormrider, it is essential to remain focused. His tone was calm, yet there was a subtle urgency woven into his words. As they rounded a corner, a sudden gust of wind whipped through the alley, sending a chill down Kaelan's spine. It felt as if the very air was warning him of the dangers that lay ahead. It was then that a flicker of movement caught his eye. Shadows danced along the walls, twisting into shapes that reminded him of figures he had seen before. Memories, or perhaps nightmares, began to surface unbidden. Kaelan halted, breath caught in his throat. The memory played before him a grand hall filled with laughter. Voices mingling with the clinking of glasses, a warm glow of golden light bathing the revelers in joy. He was there, a child among a sea of adults, his father's strong hand resting on his shoulder. And then, that voice, the silky, smooth tone of Seraphine, laced with malice as she spoke of unity and strength. His heart raced as fragments of her past entwined with his own. The image shattered, and suddenly he was back in the present, feeling as though the ground had been pulled from beneath him. "Seraphine," he whispered, and the name tasted bitter on his tongue. Lyra's brow furrowed. "What is it?" She stepped forward, her hand resting on his arm, grounding him in the moment. "She was there, I remember." Kaelan struggled to articulate the chaos within him. Her voice, the way she spoke about bringing people together. But it felt like a lie, like poison in honey. "Poison indeed," Eldrin interjected, his tone now more serious. "Queen Seraphine's motives have always been shrouded in darkness. She wields power, but at what cost? Perhaps that is what you are sensing, a connection to her tragic history." "Tragic history?" Kaelan's voice hardened. "She's not a victim, Eldrin. She chose this path." "Perhaps. But remember, young one, understanding does not mean condoning. It's easy to lose sight of the fact that every villain is also a product of their past. We cannot dismiss her story without knowing the full truth." Eldrin's eyes held a depth that stirred something within Kaelan, a seed of doubt mixed with curiosity. They continued walking, the city's heartbeat pulsing around them, yet Kaelan was trapped in the memories, visions overlapping with his reality. Another flash, Seraphine standing alone, bathed in the soft light of a sunset, tears glistening in her eyes. "You think this power comes without a price?" she had asked, her voice trembling. "Every choice I made was to protect what I loved." Kaelan felt a surge of conflicting emotions as he grappled with this new understanding. It was hard to see Seraphine as just a villain. There was a complexity to her he had never considered. A deep-seated grief simmered beneath the surface of her ambition. "We can't let her have the golden hand," he murmured, more to himself than to the others. "She'll use it to destroy everything." "Exactly," Lyra said, her voice fierce and determined. "We've faced her once, and we'll do it again. But Kaelan, if there's a chance to understand her, we need to be ready for that. It could mean the difference between victory and total annihilation." As they turned another corner, the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows that seemed to beckon to Kaelan, whispering secrets of the past. He stopped again, eyes fixed on the flickering lanterns that illuminated the street. A sense of dread crept into his heart. What if we're just pawns in a game we don't even fully understand? Eldrin regarded him thoughtfully. Every hero must decide what kind of legacy they wish to leave behind. Do you seek vengeance, or do you seek understanding? The choice will shape your destiny. Kaelan clenched his fists, feeling the weight of Eldrin's words. He was caught between the desire for revenge against the woman who had torn his life apart and a burgeoning empathy that threatened to shatter his resolve. I need to see her, he declared suddenly, surprising both Lyra and Eldrin. I need to understand what drives her. If I don't, I'll never know if I can fight her, or if I'm fighting someone who is just as lost as I am. Lyra stepped back, surprise flickering across her face. Kaelan, are you sure? You could be walking into a trap. Maybe, he admitted, heart pounding with the weight of his choice. But if I can't face my demons, how can I ever hope to defeat hers? Eldrin nodded slowly, a glimmer of respect shining in his wise eyes. Then we shall prepare for your confrontation. But know this, young Stormrider, the truth may be more complicated than you anticipate. The echoes of the past can be both illuminating and blinding. As they set off toward Seraphine's last known location, Kaelan felt the winds shift around them, carrying the scent of rain. The storm was not just in the skies above, it was brewing within him, a tempest of doubt, determination, and the flickering hope that understanding could pave a way through the chaos. With every step he took, Kaelan felt the burden of his choice, one that would change everything. The echoes of the past whispered around him, reminding him that some truths come at a price, and that price might be greater than he was prepared to pay. As they navigated the narrow alleys leading to Seraphine's lair, a palpable tension thickened the air around them. The cobblestones beneath Kaelan's boots felt cold and unyielding, much like the resolve building within him. Each step echoed with uncertainty. The shadows seemed to dance around him, mirroring the chaos within his mind. What was he about to confront? A monster, a woman twisted by her own tragedy, or perhaps both. Kaelan, remember, she's powerful. Lyra urged, her voice low but urgent. We're not just walking into a conversation. If this goes south, we need to be ready. Ready for what? He shot back, his eyes flashing with frustration. To fight? To run? I'm tired of running. The last words came out harsher than intended, and he could feel Lyra's eyes on him, searching for the real emotions beneath his bravado. I know you're angry, she replied softer now. But anger can blind you. Look what it did to Varen. Her words hung heavily in the air. Kaelan bit his lip, the mention of Varen a stark reminder of the chaos their group had spiraled into. But the need to confront Seraphine, the architect of his pain, burned fiercely in his chest. I can't let my past dictate my future, he finally said, resolving to embrace whatever awaited him. Eldrin walked a few paces ahead, his presence calm and steady. Focus on your intent, Kaelan. Understanding does not imply acceptance. It may reveal the very reasons for her actions, which could give us the upper hand. The faint glow of flickering torches became visible in the distance, illuminating an imposing structure that loomed like a specter against the darkening sky. The walls were adorned with symbols of power, a reflection of Seraphine's twisted reign. Kaelan's heartbeat quickened as they approached. He could almost hear the whispers of those who had suffered under her hand. Stay close, Eldrin instructed, eyes narrowing as they stepped into the threshold. The air shifted, charged with magic, and Kaelan instinctively drew a deep breath. Inside, the chamber was vast and dimly lit, with ancient runes etched into the stone walls. A long table dominated the center, littered with artifacts of lost kingdoms and remnants of battles long forgotten. In the flickering light, he caught sight of her, Seraphine. She stood by a window, gazing out at the horizon, her silhouette framed by the fading light. Kaelan Stormrider, she said, her voice smooth like silk but sharp as a dagger. I've been expecting you. As she turned to face him, the shadows cast a dark halo around her. Features were sharp and beautiful, yet they bore the weight of sorrow. He felt his breath hitch. Here was the woman he had loathed, yet her presence stirred an unexpected tumult of emotions within him. What do you want from me? Kaelan asked, his voice steadier than he felt. He fought against the instinct to draw his swords, forcing himself to remain vulnerable yet guarded. "Not what I want from you, but what you want from me," Seraphine replied, stepping forward. "You seek revenge. I sense the storm in your heart." "That's not why I'm here," he countered, refusing to let her words bait him. "I want to understand. Why did you do it?" A flicker of surprise crossed her face, quickly masked by a cool demeanor. "You presume to understand my motivations. To walk the path I tread." Kaelan's mind raced back to Eldrin's words, reminding him that understanding was a weapon as much as any sword. "I know you've suffered. I know the price of power," he said, his voice lowering. "But at what cost? How many lives were ruined because of your choices?" Seraphine's expression hardened, the brief glimpse of vulnerability replaced with icy resolve. "You speak as if I did not suffer loss. I lost everything to the so-called heroes of this world. They turned their backs on me when I needed them most." Her words pierced through Kaelan, revealing a thread of shared pain. "And yet, that doesn't justify your actions," he replied, feeling a mix of compassion and anger. "Justification," she echoed, her voice rising. "You seek black and white answers in a world steeped in gray. Did your father deserve to die?" The question hit him like a blow, and for a moment he was at a loss for words. Did the noble houses care for him? No, they cast him aside for their gain, just as they would cast you aside. Kaelan clenched his fists, emotions swirling like a tempest. He could see the hurt behind her facade, the rage fueled by betrayal. The realization washed over him. A fragment of her past mirrored his own. "You're right," he admitted, the words slipping out before he could pull them back. "But how does that justify becoming a monster?" "Monster." Seraphine stepped closer, her voice softening as if she were revealing a secret. "Perhaps you should ask yourself, Kaelan, what is a monster but a creation of circumstances? What would you do to protect your own?" The weight of her question lingered in the air, heavy and oppressive. Memories flooded his mind the day he had lost his father, the helplessness that had consumed him. But that pain hadn't given him the right to inflict it on others. "I don't want to become like you," he finally said, determination hardening his tone. "And yet you stand here," she challenged, eyes glinting with something between curiosity and respect. "Will you seek vengeance? Or will you take a step back and understand the broader game?" The room felt as though it were closing in on him, the echoes of their confrontation resonating within. Kaelan could feel the storm within him battling against the tides of compassion she was stirring. He hesitated, caught in the churning currents of conflicting emotions. Just then, a loud crash interrupted them, reverberating through the chamber. The ground shook beneath their feet, and a darkness crept in from the edges of the room, the shadows seeming to come alive. "Get back," Eldrin shouted, stepping in front of Kaelan and Lyra, staff raised as he prepared to conjure magic. Kaelan's heart raced, and he felt a surge of adrenaline as the walls trembled. In that moment, his earlier resolve wavered. The choice before him, between vengeance and understanding, blurred amidst the chaos. The realization hit him hard. What if Seraphine wasn't the only monster in the room? As the shadows threatened to swallow them whole, he turned back to Seraphine, the flicker of fear in her eyes stark against the intensity of the darkening chamber. "What is happening?" he demanded, but her gaze had shifted, fixated on something behind him, a mixture of dread and fury in her expression. The darkness swirled, coalescing into a figure emerging from the shadows, a creature of nightmares, intent on wreaking havoc. It was clear now that whatever force had summoned them was not merely a spectator in this game of power. In the tumult of that moment, Kaelan's internal battle became moot. Survival took precedence. "What do we do?" he shouted to Seraphine, instinctively finding himself aligning with her, an unexpected ally in a moment of peril. And as the creature lunged toward them, a harsh truth crystallized in Kaelan's mind. Whether they faced monsters born of betrayal or shadows of the past, the line between hero and villain was painfully thin, and in the face of true evil, they would need to stand together. His choice had consequences. and the storm of his past was far from over. The echoes of chaos roared like a tempest, wrapping around Kaelan, drowning out all rational thought. He could feel his heart pounding against his ribcage, each beat reminding him of the storm within. His conflict with Seraphine, his quest for vengeance, and the gnawing curiosity to understand her tragic past. But as the shadows thickened and the creature of nightmares materialized before them, all introspection faded, eclipsed by the immediate threat. "Stay close," Eldrin shouted, his voice steady even as he prepared to unleash his magic. Kaelan instinctively positioned himself between Lyra and the oncoming creature, his dual swords ready in his hands, a reflex born of instinct rather than strategy. Seraphine, momentarily forgotten in the unfolding chaos, glanced at Kaelan, her expression an odd blend of fear and determination. "You've seen me as a villain, but if we're to survive, you must trust me. Just for now," she urged, urgency edging her words. "Trust you." Kaelan shot back, feeling the tension knot in his chest. "You're the one who has plunged this realm into chaos." But there was no time for debate. The creature, a shadowy amalgamation of darkness and rage, lunged forward, a silent predator intent on destruction. Its jagged maw opened wide, revealing rows of glistening teeth that seemed to absorb the light around it. "Now," Eldrin cried, unleashing a torrent of shimmering energy from his staff, weaving intricate patterns that twisted through the air. The spell collided with the creature, causing it to recoil momentarily, a guttural roar escaping its throat. The air crackled with energy, the scent of ozone sharp and invigorating. "Kaelan, aim for its eyes," Lyra shouted, darting to the side, her agile form slipping between shadows. She launched a small, illusionary distraction, casting the creature into a brief confusion, giving them precious moments. With a deep breath, Kaelan focused, letting the storm within him swell. He could feel the elements respond to his call. Water from the moisture in the air swirled around him, weaving through his fingers. Channeling the energy of the tempest, he aimed and struck, sending a jet of icy water toward the creature's eyes. It staggered back, howling in pain, its furious gaze locking onto Kaelan. "Good." Seraphine's voice cut through the tumult as she moved to flank the creature, her movements graceful and deliberate. "Now, keep it off balance." With each moment, their precarious alliance solidified. Kaelan and Seraphine, adversaries turned temporary allies against a shared threat. As the creature recovered, it struck out, lunging towards Lyra. Kaelan's instincts kicked in, and he leaped forward, colliding with the beast's side, forcing it off course. "Watch out," Eldrin warned, casting another spell that exploded in a brilliant flash, disorienting the creature. The flickering light illuminated the room, casting long shadows that danced like restless spirits. In the midst of battle, Kaelan caught glimpses of Seraphine's face. It was fierce, unyielding. But beneath that steely exterior lay the weight of sorrow, an echo of the past that connected them. He was struck by an understanding of the pain that drove her. Just as it drove him, the creature roared again, lashing out, and Kaelan found himself cornered, forced to dodge its jagged claws. He could feel the warmth of adrenaline flooding through him, igniting his senses, sharpening his focus. With each clash, every thrust and parry, his past battles came rushing back, his father's death, the desire for vengeance, and the realization that every act of hatred only perpetuated the cycle of pain. "Fight smarter, not harder," Seraphine yelled, her eyes glimmering with a ferocity that demanded respect. "We have to strike as one." Kaelan felt a surge of power in her words, a connection that bridged the chasm between them. He looked at her, seeing her not just as a manipulator, but as a survivor molded by loss. The weight of their histories pressed upon him, and for the first time, he saw her not merely as a threat, but as a victim of circumstance, a tragic figure trapped in her own design. "All right," he breathed, the storm within him settling into a steady current of resolve. "Let's finish this." Together, they engaged the creature in a dance of combat, each movement a testament to their growing bond. Kaelan and Seraphine fought with a fierce unity, anticipating each other's actions. The shadows that had once separated them now seemed to weave together, forming a fabric of understanding. one that neither had expected but desperately needed. As Kaelan struck again, his blade slicing through the air with a newfound precision, he couldn't shake the feeling that this fight was not just against the creature, but against the very darkness that sought to define them both. The echoes of their pasts mingled with the roar of the present, a symphony of conflict that had the power to either destroy or heal. With a final, collaborative effort, they struck together, Kaelan's sword piercing through the creature's heart as Seraphine unleashed her magic in a burst of light. The darkness shrieked, dissipating into tendrils of smoke that faded into nothingness. For a moment, silence reigned, an eerie calm settling over the chaos. Panting heavily, Kaelan turned to Seraphine, his heart racing not only from the battle but from the unexpected alliance forged in the heat of conflict. "What now?" he asked, uncertainty creeping back in. The shadows of the past were not easily shaken, and he felt the weight of his choices pressing down on him. Would he seek vengeance, or would he choose to understand? Seraphine's eyes sparkled with both hope and resignation as she stepped closer. "We face what comes next," she replied, a hint of something softening in her expression. "Together." But as they caught their breath, a flicker of darkness slithered at the edges of their triumph, a reminder that battles were not easily won, and true understanding came with a price. And as Kaelan contemplated his next move, the echo of their pasts loomed larger than ever, whispering secrets of fate that had yet to unfold. Kaelan stood at the precipice of uncertainty, his heart pounding as the last remnants of the creature dissolved into wisps of shadow. The silence that followed the chaos was heavy, almost oppressive. He turned to Seraphine, her figure framed against the dimming light of dusk. For so long, she had been the enemy, a figure cloaked in dark ambitions. Yet now, standing beside her, he sensed a fragile connection binding them, a shared understanding forged in the crucible of battle. Together, he echoed her words, a question lingering on the tip of his tongue. It felt like a precarious agreement, a tentative step into uncharted territory. "Yes," she affirmed, her voice steady despite the tremor of emotions bubbling beneath the surface. "But this is just the beginning, Kaelan. There are forces at play that you cannot begin to comprehend." As they caught their breath, the shadows that danced around them seemed to pulse with anticipation. The night held secrets, dark and tangled echoes of the past. Kaelan felt them stir, twisting through the fabric of reality, begging for acknowledgement. "Tell me," he demanded, desperation seeping into his voice. "What are we really fighting against? What's your story?" Seraphine's eyes, once cold and calculating, softened for a moment. A flicker of vulnerability crossed her features as she took a step back, the distance between them growing. "You wouldn't understand," she began, her words dripping with the weight of her past. "My choices were never about power, Kaelan. They were about survival. Survival for those who depended on me. I lost everything when I was cast aside. Do you know what it feels like to watch your home burn while you can do nothing?" Kaelan swallowed hard, memories of his own loss surfacing uninvited. He saw flashes of his father, the noble captain lost to the tides of betrayal, his image intermingling with Seraphine's recollections. The loss, the despair, the longing for justice. How similar their paths felt now. "Then why embrace darkness?" he asked, voice low. "Why resort to manipulation and fear? Because it was all I had left," she shot back, frustration bleeding through her calm facade. "To be strong, to fight back against those who sought to crush me. I did what was necessary. If I had not, I would be dead, like so many others who dared to defy them." Kaelan clenched his fists, grappling with her words. "And what of the innocent lives caught in your wake? The people who suffer because of your choices?" A flicker of pain crossed her features, but she masked it quickly, her walls rising again. "It's a cruel world, Kaelan. The strong survive, and the weak are left behind. You've experienced it yourself, haven't you? The futility of trying to save everyone." Kaelan's heart raced. He felt the weight of her truth pressing down upon him, igniting a storm of conflicting emotions. The desire for vengeance throbbed in his veins, but beneath it lay a flicker of compassion. Seraphine wasn't merely an antagonist. She was a survivor, shaped by a world that had shown her no mercy. Maybe we both want the same thing. Then, he whispered, taking a hesitant step closer. To protect what remains. To carve a path through the darkness. A spark of hope ignited in her eyes, but before it could fully bloom, a sharp, icy wind swept through the clearing. The atmosphere shifted, crackling with tension. Kaelan's instincts flared. Something was coming. "Look out!" he shouted, instinctively pulling Seraphine closer as dark tendrils erupted from the ground, lashing out like serpents seeking vengeance. They barely evaded the strike, rolling to the side as the shadows slashed through the air. The darkness hissed, a malicious whisper threading through their surroundings. Kaelan felt his heart race, the storm within him roaring back to life. "Fight," Seraphine commanded, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Use the shadows to our advantage." The words resonated with Kaelan, igniting a fire in his chest. He turned, summoning the water element he had long practiced. Drawing it from the air, molding it into icy spikes that gleamed like daggers. With a flick of his wrist, he hurled them at the dark tendrils, feeling the rush of power surging through him. "Together," Seraphine shouted, her voice like a battle cry. She unleashed her magic, sending arcs of light that intertwined with Kaelan's water, forming a dazzling display that illuminated the night. The shadows recoiled, but their anger only grew stronger. Kaelan felt the pull of despair, the urge to surrender to vengeance, but the connection he had forged with Seraphine anchored him. In that moment, he saw her not as an enemy, but as an ally, both of them caught in a web of their pasts, struggling for a brighter future. With a fierce determination, they charged forward, a united front against the darkness. Each strike resonated with a shared purpose, and with every clash, Kaelan felt the weight of his own destiny crystallizing. But amidst the chaos, a question lingered. What would this alliance cost him? As the echoes of their pasts intertwined, he understood that the choices they made would shape the future in ways he could scarcely imagine. The last tendril writhed before them, collapsing into a mist of shadows, and as silence enveloped them once more, Kaelan felt the pulse of fate beating strongly in his chest. The echoes of their intertwined destinies loomed larger than ever, whispering secrets of what was to come. "What happens next?" Kaelan asked, breathless but resolved, still grappling with the enormity of their encounter. Seraphine's gaze held his, an unspoken agreement passing between them. "Now we prepare. For Seraphine is not done with us yet. Her past is woven tightly with our future, and I fear the worst is yet to come." The shadows had been pushed back, but a deeper darkness lurked just beyond the horizon, waiting for its moment to strike. Kaelan knew that the echoes of the past would not remain silent for long, and he steeled himself for the battles yet to unfold, ready to face the storm that awaited them both. The echoes of their recent battle reverberated in the air, heavy and thick, as Kaelan took a moment to catch his breath. The battlefield lay strewn with remnants of shadow and light, but amidst the carnage, an unsettling calm settled over him. He felt an uncanny connection to Seraphine, one that transcended mere alliance. It whispered of shared burdens, unspoken tragedies, and a fate intricately intertwined. What does it mean? Kaelan mused aloud, his voice barely above a whisper. He stared into the distance, where the horizon blurred between reality and the ghostly remnants of his memories. The more he learned about Seraphine, the more questions danced in his mind, pulling at the threads of his heart. Seraphine turned to him, her expression unreadable. "What do you feel when you think of your father?" Her voice was softer now, laden with an understanding that cut through the chaos of their recent conflict. The sudden shift in her demeanor startled him, peeling back layers of her steely exterior. The question hung in the air like a tangible force, pressing down on Kaelan. Memories of his father flooded his mind, the warmth of his laughter, the tales of adventure shared by the seaside, and the sorrow etched in his mother's face when they lost him. The yearning for vengeance ignited within him once more, a fire that could easily consume him if he let it. "I feel angry," he admitted, feeling vulnerable under her gaze. "Angry that I lost him, that I was too late to save him." Seraphine nodded slowly. as if his words were a shared confession. And do you think that anger will bring him back? Or is it a path that will lead you further into darkness? Her words struck a chord deep within him. Kaelan grappled with the emotions swirling inside. Vengeance felt like a comfort, a familiar embrace that promised to shield him from the rawness of grief. But now, facing Seraphine, he realized that her own journey mirrored his own struggles in ways he hadn't fully grasped. "Why do you care?" he challenged, unable to mask the suspicion that crept into his voice. "You're the one who seeks power for yourself. What do you know of loss?" The corner of her mouth twitched, hinting at a smile, though her eyes remained solemn. "You'd be surprised, Kaelan. The scars we carry are not always visible. Mine are etched deep within me." In an instant, a memory flared to life before him, sharp and vivid. Seraphine standing at the edge of a cliff, her back turned to him as she gazed out over a stormy sea. The haunting melody of a lament drifted through his mind, a song of sorrow and longing that felt all too familiar. Her voice echoed in his ears. "To seek power is to understand the burden of what it costs." "What do you mean?" Kaelan pressed, drawn to the revelation that she was offering. The winds around them stirred, a reflection of the turmoil within him. "Every choice has its price," she said, her voice now barely a murmur. "The more we fight against our past, the more it shapes our future. I lost someone dear to me too, someone who trusted me completely, only to suffer because of my mistakes." As the weight of her words sank in, flashes of her past ignited in his mind, like the splintering of a distant star. Kaelan saw a younger Seraphine, her eyes wide with innocence, laughter echoing against the backdrop of sunlit fields, only to be replaced by scenes of despair, of a hand outstretched in a plea for help that never came. "Seraphine," he started, the name leaving his lips as a question wrapped in confusion and empathy. "I did everything wrong," she interrupted, her voice trembling with emotion. "In my pursuit of strength, I lost sight of the very thing that mattered most. I vowed to unite the realms, but in my arrogance, I only tore them apart." Kaelan felt a flicker of compassion ignite within him, battling fiercely against the long-standing resentment he had harbored. Here stood Seraphine, a figure he had once viewed only as an enemy. Now, he saw her vulnerabilities, the echoes of her past intertwined with his own. He understood then that both of their paths were lined with regrets, fears, and the consequences of choices made in darkness. "You seek vengeance against those who wronged you," she continued, locking eyes with him, the intensity of her gaze penetrating through the barriers he had erected. "But will that vengeance bring you peace, Kaelan? Or will it bind you to a fate you cannot escape?" The question reverberated in his heart, forcing him to confront the storm within. He felt the familiar tug of his father's death, the weight of justice that he craved, yet an undeniable urge to understand the depth of pain that Seraphine felt compelled him to reflect. "What if I can find a way to heal both our scars?" he suggested, uncertain yet hopeful. Seraphine's eyes softened, a spark of something akin to admiration igniting in them. "You may be the only one who can, but it will not be easy. The shadows we chase do not fade without a fight." Kaelan's determination surged as he considered their united fronts. The thought of their pasts colliding offered a glimmer of hope, but it was quickly overshadowed by the chilling reality of what lay ahead. "I won't let our past dictate our future," he vowed, clenching his fists at his sides, drawing strength from his resolve. But just as the air around them began to crackle with promise, a chilling wind swept through the battlefield, raising the hairs on the back of his neck. The shadows stirred once more, their whispers growing louder, the darkness creeping back like a tide ready to engulf them. "Kaelan." Lyra's voice sliced through the stillness, filled with urgency. "We have to move." With Seraphine's hand clasped tightly in his own, Kaelan took a step forward, ready to face the encroaching threat. The stakes had never been higher, and as they moved deeper into the unknown, he felt the bonds of their destinies tightening around him. Whatever came next, he was determined to forge a path that would not only honor his father, but also free them from the chains of their haunted pasts. As they ventured forth, Kaelan felt the pull of destiny wrapping around him, promising both danger and a chance at redemption. The journey had just begun, and the echoes of their intertwined fates would guide them through the storm ahead.